My name is Iris Archer, and I am 33 years old. 2 weeks ago, my mother rang my doorbell for the first time in 9 years. She stood on my porch in a beige cardigan with a carry-on suitcase and a folded piece of paper. The paper was not an apology. It was a list, handwritten, blue ink, bullet points. Every bullet had a dollar sign. Total $925,000. She did not say she was sorry. She did not ask about her She said, "We need to talk about the family's future." But here is what my mother did not know. I had been keeping a list of my own for 9 years. Every birthday card she returned, every voicemail she ignored, every text message my sister sent about me behind my back. 29 items, all labeled, all dated, all filed in a navy blue binder that I kept in the bottom drawer of my desk. She brought a list of what she wanted. I brought a list of what she did. Before we get into this, if you are new here, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. And while you are at it, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from and what time it is where you are. I love reading those. Let me take you back to the summer I turned 24. The summer my family told me I was no longer Millfield, Ohio, population 2,000 and change. One Baptist church. One barber shop. One diner where every booth smelled like coffee and bacon grease, no matter what time you walked in. That was my town. My whole world until I was 18. My father, Kenneth, worked at the lumber yard on Route 7 for 31 years. Same shift, same boots, same quiet nod when he came through the door at 5:42 every. My mother, Diane, ran the household and the church women's committee with equal precision. She organized the Easter brunch. She coordinated the prayer chain. She decided who brought what to every potluck, and nobody argued. My sister Paige was 4 years younger and everything I was not. Loud. Confident, the kind of girl who got voted homecoming queen and acted surprised. Mom adored her. Dad called her sunshine. I was the quiet one. The one who did the dishes without being asked and scored perfect on every math test and never got a party for either. I do not say this with bitterness. I say it because you need to understand math. In our family, love was a budget, and Paige was the line item that always got funded first. When I was 18, I got a scholarship to Ohio State. Full ride. I was the first archer to go to Mom packed my suitcase and slipped a card inside, the kind with flowers on the front and her handwriting on the back. Come home soon. You belong here. I kept that card for 15 years. It is still in my desk drawer, right next to the navy binder. The card was the last kind thing she ever wrote to me. I met Marcus Ellison in the advanced statistics spring semester of my. He sat 2 rows ahead of me and solved regression problems like he was reading a grocery list. Calm, methodical, never rushed. He was an engineering major, computer science minor on a partial scholarship from Cleveland. His mother, Cora, was a retired school librarian. His father, white from the suburbs, left when Marcus was 4. Cora raised him alone. She worked 2 jobs until Marcus turned 16, and then she worked 1 job and volunteered at 3. Marcus was biracial. He had his mother's eyes and his father's jawline, and this way of listening that made you feel like everything you said actually mattered. Our first date was at a taco truck near campus. He paid with crumpled singles. I paid with quarters. We split a horchata and talked until the truck closed. He told me he wanted to build something. He did not know what yet, but something that solved a real problem. I told him I wanted a job where the numbers meant something. He said, "Then, we are in the right field." We dated for 3 years before he proposed. 3 quiet, steady, unremarkable years. He met my parents twice. The first time Mom smiled too wide and called him Michael instead of Mark. The second time she called him Marcus but did not look at him when she said it. Both times, Dad shook his hand and said almost nothing. I told myself it was nerves. Small town people, they just needed time. Paige was the honest one. At Thanksgiving, she leaned over and whispered, "He is nice, but Mom is never going to be okay with this." You know that, right? I did not know that. Not yet. Marcus proposed on a Tuesday. No ring at first, just a conversation at our kitchen table in our tiny apartment near campus. He said, "I want to spend my life with you. I want to build something with you. Will you let me?" I said yes before he finished the sentence. I called home that night. Mom picked up on the third ring. I told her. The line went quiet for 7 seconds. "You need to think about what this means for this family, Iris. Not congratulations, not tell me about the ring. A warning." Dad got on the extension. He cleared his throat twice and said nothing. 2 days later, Paige texted, "Mom has been crying since you called." "Are you happy now?" I was actually, for the first time in years, but I did not reply. 2 weeks after the call, a letter arrived, not an email, a letter. Diane Archer's cursive on cream-colored stationery. She wrote 4 paragraphs. The last one said, "If you go through with this, you are choosing him over your family. We cannot support this. We will not attend. And if you walk down that aisle, do not expect to walk back through our door. He is not one of us, Iris. He never will be." That was the line. She drew it in blue ink on cream stationery, and she expected me to stand on her side of it. I read the letter 3 times, folded it, and put it in a manila folder. I did not know why I kept it. Something in me, the part that files receipts and labels bank statements, told me to hold on to it. I held on. We got married at the Multnomah County Courthouse on a Saturday in June. 12 guests. All friends, all Marcus's side. His mother, Cora, flew in from Cleveland with a garment bag and a Tupperware container of pound cake. She pinned a silk flower to my dress and held both my hands and said, "Welcome to the family, baby." No father walked me down the aisle. There was no aisle. There was a hallway with fluorescent lights and a judge who pronounced our names, and a reception at a Thai restaurant where we pushed 4 tables together. Marcus's college roommate gave a toast that made everyone laugh so hard Cora spilled her water. My dress cost $160 from a consignment shop on Hawthorne. White, simple, fit perfectly. Marcus wore a navy suit he bought on clearance. We looked like 2 people who had just done the most important thing of our lives on a budget. Because we had. That night in our apartment, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the bouquet grocery store roses, $6, and my hands shook. Not from doubt, from grief. I had just gotten married, and the 2 people who raised me did not care enough to watch. 1 week later, I mailed a card to Millfield. Inside was our wedding photo, Marcus and me on the courthouse steps, grinning. I wrote, "We are happy. I hope you can be happy for us someday." The card came back 11 days later. I've converted it into smooth paragraph-style narrative, stamped in red "Return to sender." I stared at that stamp for a long time. Then I opened the manila folder, slipped the card inside, and wrote in red pen, "Item 2 wedding photo returned." That was the beginning of the binder. Year 1 was the hardest. I called Mom 4 times and reached voicemail every time. I left short, careful messages, the kind where you choose every word because you know it might be the last one she ever listens to. "Hi, Mom. Just calling to say hi. We are doing well. Marcus got a job at a software company downtown. I am studying for the CPA exam. I miss you. Call me back whenever you are ready." She never called back. I sent a card for her birthday, a card for Dad's birthday, and a card for Christmas. All 3 came back with the same red stamp. Dad sent 1 text in February, "Your mother needs time." That was it. No follow-up. No second text. Those 4 words sat in my phone like a voicemail I could not delete. That spring, Paige posted a family photo on Facebook. Mom, Dad, Paige, and Paige's boyfriend at the time stood together smiling beneath the caption, "Sunday dinner with my people." I was not in the photo. I had never been invited. I printed the screenshot not to torture myself, but because I had started doing something I could not explain. I was filing things, every returned card, every unanswered call, every piece of evidence that my family had decided I no longer existed. I put them all in the manila folder, and by March the folder was thick enough that I transferred everything into a navy blue 3-ring binder with tabs. The words "he is not one of us" echoed in my head at strange moments in the grocery store, at the dentist, and at 2 a.m. when Marcus was asleep and the apartment was dark. I wanted those words to stop hurting. They never stopped completely, but they grew quieter over time. Meanwhile, the binder grew thicker. By year 2, Marcus quit his job. Not recklessly, he had a plan. For 6 months, he had been building a prototype on nights and weekends, a compliance platform for small. It was software designed to make SEC filings and financial audits less painful for companies that could not afford a legal team. Marcus knew compliance. I knew finance. Together, we understood a problem nobody else wanted to solve, making regulatory paperwork manageable for businesses with fewer than 50 employees. He set up a desk in our garage with 2 monitors, a space, and a whiteboard he bought at Goodwill for $12. Every evening after my analyst job, I would heat leftover soup and sit beside him reviewing financial models until midnight. I built the pricing structure, wrote the compliance checklists, and tested every module against real SEC guidelines. Marcus built the engine. I built the dashboard. Neither of us slept enough. Compliance Core launched 7 months later with 4 customers and a free trial that crashed twice on its first day. That same year, I upgraded the binder. The manila folder was overflowing with returned cards, voicemail transcripts, Facebook screenshots, and the original ultimatum letter. I bought a proper navy blue binder with dividers for each year and red pen labels on every item. Tab 1. Year 1. I was not building a case. I was not planning revenge. I was simply doing what I had always done, keeping records. I was a financial analyst, and financial analysts do not throw away documentation. Ever. But I did start numbering the items, and I did start writing the date on each one, because numbers do not lie, and neither would I. Liam and Sophie arrived on a Wednesday morning in November. They weighed 6 pounds each and had identical dark curls. Sophie screamed for 4 hours straight while Liam slept through all of it. Marcus cried. I had never seen him cry before. He stood by the hospital window holding Sophie in his left arm and Liam in his right and said, "They are going to know they are loved every single day." Cora flew in the next morning and stayed for 2. She cooked, cleaned, and rocked Liam at 3 a.m. while I fed Sophie. She brought a yellow and white crocheted blanket soft enough to make you cry and silver bracelets engraved with each baby's birthday. That was what a grandmother looked like. 5 months earlier, I had sent Diane ultrasound photos. They were returned. I sent birth announcements 2 cards, 1 for each. Returned, I mailed photos of Liam sleeping on Marcus's chest and Sophie gripping my finger. Returned, 3 more items went into the binder, items 13, 14, and 15. Not long afterward, a mutual friend sent me a screenshot of a text Paige had written. It read, "Her children don't have real grandparents. That is what she chose." I sat in the nursery staring at those words for 11 minutes. Sophie slept in her crib. Liam rested in my arms. In the kitchen, I could hear Cora humming softly while she washed bottles. My children did have a grandmother. Her name was Cora Ellison, and she flew from Cleveland every 6 weeks and never missed a birthday. I printed Paige's text, labeled it Item 16, and filed it away. By year 4, the binder contained 19 items. I want to be clear about something. I did not keep that binder out of spite. I did not sit awake at night flipping through it and imagining confrontations. Most weeks, I forgot it existed. It sat in the bottom drawer of my desk, behind tax folders and old insurance documents, collecting dust. But whenever something arrived, a returned card, a forwarded screenshot, a voicemail transcript I could not bring myself to delete, I filed it. Same process every time. Print, label, date, red pen, tab. Marcus asked me once why I kept all of it. I told him the truth. Because someday, when the kids are old enough, they might ask why they do not have grandparents on my side. And I want them to have facts. Not my version, not her version. The receipts. He nodded. He understood receipts. He was an engineer, and engineers keep build logs. By then, Compliance Corps had 11 employees. We had moved out of the garage and into a real office in the Pearl District. Marcus worked 60 hours a week. I worked 40 hours at my firm and another 20 managing Compliance Corps' books. We hired a part-time nanny for the twins, and we ate dinner together every evening at 6:30. That rule was non-negotiable. The silence from Ohio had become a fact of life, like the weather. Some days I noticed it, most days I did not. Cora continued visiting every 6 weeks. The twins called her Grammy. She taught Liam how to make grilled cheese and taught Sophie the names of every bird in the backyard. I did not know it then, but that binder would become the most important document in my life, more important than my degree, more important than our marriage certificate, and more important than the IPO filing I would sign 5 years later. By year 5, Compliance Corps had 15 employees, a real office, a sign on the door, and a conference room with a whiteboard that was not from Goodwill. The company was growing not fast, not flashy, but steadily. It was the kind of growth that never made headlines, yet paid salaries, supported families, and kept the lights on. Marcus still coded. He refused to become the kind of CEO who stopped building the product. Most mornings he was at his desk by 6:30, headphones on, buried in architecture problems I did not even pretend to understand. I handled everything else: cash flow, vendor contracts, quarterly projections. The company was his vision, the numbers were mine. We bought our first house that year, a craftsman bungalow in the Selwood neighborhood of Portland. It had 3 bedrooms, original hardwood floors, and a backyard with a plum tree the twins claimed as their fort. I remember signing the mortgage papers and thinking, this is ours. Nobody gave us this. We built it. That same year, Liam and Sophie started kindergarten. They rode the same bus, sat in the same row, and argued every morning about who got the window seat. It was normal. Beautifully, painfully normal. On a Tuesday night in October, I made the mistake of opening Facebook. Diane had posted a family photo from what looked like an early Thanksgiving dinner. There was a new dining set, Paige and her husband, and a baby in a high chair, Paige's son, my nephew, whom I had never met. The caption read my whole world. 3 people, a baby, a table. A family that did not include me, my children, or the man I married. I closed the app and went to bed. I did not cry. Somewhere around year 3, I had stopped crying about Diane Archer. Some wounds do not heal, they simply go numb. Paige got married in year 6. I learned about it from Instagram. The photographs were beautiful: a white church, the same Baptist church where I had been baptized at 12, 200 guests, Paige wearing a cathedral-length veil, Mom dressed in lavender, and Dad in a suit I had never seen before. The reception featured a live band, a 5-tier cake, and a sparkler send-off that looked like something from a movie. They did not invite me. They did not tell me. I found out 4 days later when a high school friend posted a group photo with the caption, "Best Wedding of the Year." I zoomed in. My parents stood in the second row, smiling, arms wrapped around each other. Dad looked thinner. Mom looked exactly the same. I stared at that picture for a long time. Not because I was jealous of the way I had my wedding, 12 people, Thai food, a $160 dress, and the best man I have ever known. I stared because they looked happy. They looked happy without me. I did something I probably should not have done. I ordered a set of handmade linen napkins from a small shop in Portland, ivory-colored and monogrammed with Paige's new initials. I included a card that read, "Congratulations on your wedding. I wish you and your husband every happiness. Love, Iris." The package came back 3 weeks later, unopened. The tape was untouched. Item 17. Gift returned. Paige's wedding. Red pen. Dated, I put the binder back in the drawer, closed it, and sat quietly at my desk listening to Sophie sing in the bathtub while Liam argued with Marcus about whether dinosaurs could swim. That was my family, right there in the next room, and they were enough. Year 7 changed everything. Compliance Corps landed its Series B funding round, $12 million from a venture capital firm in San Francisco. I remember the phone call clearly. Marcus was in the kitchen making pancakes for the twins when his phone rang. He listened for a minute, nodded, hung up, turned toward me, and said, "They said yes." Before the pancakes were finished, I had already done the math. $12 million in funding. Post-money valuation of $68 million. Marcus and I still owned 22%. We were not rich. Not yet. But the numbers were heading somewhere I had only ever modeled in spreadsheets. That month, I left my analyst position and joined Compliance Corps full-time as CEO. It was the first time my name appeared beside Marcus's on the company paperwork. We had always been partners in life. Now we were partners in business as well. We moved into a larger home, a 4-bedroom colonial in Lake Oswego, 15 minutes south of Portland. It was in a quiet neighborhood with strong schools and a large kitchen island where the twins did homework while I reviewed quarterly reports at the other end. The Series B funding generated a little attention. TechCrunch published a short article. A few fintech newsletters mentioned us. Nothing major. The kind of publicity industry people noticed while everyone else scrolled past. But someone in Millfield, Ohio, did not scroll past. 2 weeks after the article appeared, a friend from high school texted me. "Hey, kind of random, but your mom asked me about your husband's company at church on Sunday. She wanted to know what Series B meant. Just thought you should know." I read the message 3 times. Mom had not spoken my name in 7 years. She did not know what Series B meant, but suddenly she wanted to. The math was changing, and Diane Archer was paying attention. That same year, I sent what I knew would be my final birthday card. I had mailed one every year for 7 straight years. All 7 had been returned. Each one filed. Each one labeled. This time, though, I tucked something extra inside. A photograph of Liam and Sophie at their school's fall festival. They wore matching flannel shirts and face paint. Liam was missing his 2 front teeth. Sophie smiled so broadly, her eyes were nearly closed. On the back of the picture, I wrote, "They ask about you sometimes. I tell them you live far away." I sealed the envelope, mailed it, and expected the usual red stamp. 9 days later, it came back. But something was different. The envelope had been opened, the flap was creased, and the glue had been resealed with a strip of clear tape. I held it up to the light. The card was still inside. The photograph was still inside. But someone had removed them, looked at them, and then carefully returned them before sending everything back. I sat at the kitchen table, turning that envelope over in my hands for a long time. Someone in that house, Dad, I was almost certain had opened the card. He had looked at the faces of his grandchildren. He had held their photograph. Then someone else, Mom, I was absolutely certain had made him put it back and return it. He wanted to keep it. She would not allow it. Item 23. Birthday card. Opened and resealed. Photo viewed. Still returned. I wrote the label with a steadier hand than I expected. For years I had suspected Dad was not the architect of the silence. He was the enforcer. Mom was the architect. And her blueprint was simple. If she could not control who I loved, she would erase me from the family entirely. By year 8, Compliance Corps was growing faster than either of us had imagined. We had 80 employees, offices in Portland and Austin, and partnerships with 2 of the largest accounting firms in the Pacific Northwest. Marcus appeared on the cover of a regional business magazine. It was a small publication with limited distribution, but there he was on glossy paper beneath the headline, "The Quiet Disruptor." That same month, I noticed something unusual happening on my LinkedIn account. Someone from Millfield, Ohio had viewed my profile 3 times in 1 week. No name visible, a private browser or a burner account, but the location was right there. Millfield, Ohio, then Forbes, ran its annual companies to watch list. Compliance Corps made it number 47 out of 50. Small mention. 2 sentences. But it was Forbes. I did not think much about the LinkedIn views until a few weeks later when Marcus was invited to guest on a fintech podcast. The episode was 45 minutes, mostly technical compliance, automation, API integrations, federal reporting standards, not exactly viral content. But 3 days after it aired, my old friend from Ohio texted again. "Your mom told Linda at church that she always knew Marcus was smart." Direct quote. Linda said Diane sounded proud. "First time she has mentioned your name in years. Always knew Marcus was smart. 7 years of silence, and now she always knew." I did not add that to the binder. It was not a document. It was hearsay. But I wrote it on a Post-it note and stuck it to the inside cover because I wanted to remember the moment Diane Archer started rewriting history. She was not proud of Marcus. She was not even sorry. She was recalculating. The numbers were getting bigger, and my mother was an accountant of a different kind. The group chat arrived on a Monday. My friend from Ohio, Tess, the one who kept me in the loop about church gossip, called me at 7 in the evening. She sounded rattled. "Iris, Paige accidentally added me to a family group chat. I think she meant to add someone else with a similar number. I was in it for 3 days before they noticed and removed me. I took screenshots." She sent 7 screenshots. 3 days of unfiltered Archer family conversation. I read them in the parking lot of Liam's soccer practice. Paige, his company was valued at $68 million last round. I have been tracking the funding filings. If they IPO, we are looking at $300 million minimum. Diane, how do we approach this? She will not listen to me. Kenneth, maybe I should call first. Feel her out. Diane, no. I need to go in person with a plan. A real plan. Paige, make a list? Diane, be specific about what we need. She is a numbers person. She will respond to numbers. Paige, how much should we ask for? Diane, start with the mortgage, then medical, then retirement. College for my son. Monthly support. Layer it. Make it look like family investment, not a request. Kenneth, this does not feel right. Diane, Kenneth, she has more money than this entire town. She can afford to help her family. Kenneth did not reply after that. I sat in my car with the engine off. The dashboard clock read 7:22. Through the windshield, I could see Liam running across the field chasing a ball twice the size of his head. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, from clarity. 9 years of silence. 9 years of returned birthday cards and ignored grandchildren and a cream-colored letter that said, "Do not walk back through our door." And now that the numbers had changed, they wanted to approach with a plan. I drove home, printed the screenshots, and filed them. Item 26. Family group chat. Financial tracking. Reconnaissance confirmed. If this story is hitting close to home, if you have ever had someone cut you off and come running back when the numbers changed, drop a comment, tell me. Because I think more of us carry this than we admit. And while you are here, subscribe if you have not yet. I told Marcus that night after the kids were asleep. I showed him the screenshots. He read them once, slowly, the way he reads code line by line, looking for bugs. When he finished, he set the phone on the counter and stared at the wall for a long time. What do you want to do? Nothing yet. But I want to be ready. He nodded. That was Marcus. He did not tell me what to feel. He did not suggest we ignore it or confront it or anything in between. He asked what I wanted and then stood next to me while I figured it out. The next morning, I called a family attorney. Not to sue, not to file anything. I wanted to understand our position. What were our rights if Diane showed up? Could she make any legal claim to our assets or the children? The attorney, a woman named Grace, mid-50s, no nonsense, walked me through it in 20 minutes. No, Diane had no legal standing. Our trusts were structured to protect the children's assets. No grandparent visitation rights in Oregon without an existing relationship. And 9 years of documented estrangement made any claim laughable. I thanked Grace, hung up, and went to work. But I also did something else that week. I drafted a letter. I did not send it. I simply wrote it out longhand at the kitchen table after midnight. In it, I listed every item in the binder, every date, every returned card, every ignored call, every screenshot. 26 items. Dated, documented, ready, year 9. The IPO conversation started in January. Investment bankers flew to Portland. We had 3 rounds of meetings in our conference room. The one with the whiteboard that was still from Goodwill, though nobody needed to know that. They reviewed our financials, growth projections, and customer retention rates. They used words like roadshow, pricing range, and lockup period. Marcus handled the product pitch. I handled the numbers. Every slide, every projection, every risk disclosure. My name was on it. CFO, co-founder, the person who signed off on every SEC filing before it left the building. The process took 7 months. 7 months of due diligence, legal review, and investor meetings. Marcus barely slept. I barely ate. The twins started noticing. Liam asked why Dad kept talking to his laptop during dinner. Sophie drew a picture of me at my desk with a speech bubble that said one more email. In August, our attorney finalized the trust structure for Liam and Sophie. 2 irrevocable trusts. Funded, protected, nobody not Diane, not Kenneth, not Paige, not any future version of any Archer who showed up with a list could touch $1. I signed the trust documents on a Tuesday afternoon in a corner office overlooking the Willamette River. The attorney asked if I had any questions. I had one. If a family member attempts to claim access to these funds, what happens? Nothing, she said. That is the point. I went home, made dinner, helped Sophie with long division, and placed the trust documents in the fire safe under our bed. Then I noticed something odd. For the first time in months, no one from Millfield had viewed my LinkedIn profile. No texts from Tess about church gossip, no digital footprints at all. Quiet, the dangerous kind. 2 months before the IPO, Paige texted me. First time in 9 years. The message arrived at 2:17 on a Thursday afternoon. Hey, just thinking about you. How are the kids? 6 words. 9 years. And how are the kids? As if she had been asking regularly. As if this was a continuation of something instead of a resurrection. I did not reply for a week. I wanted to see if she would follow up. She did. A second text, I am going to be in Portland for work next month. Would love to see you. Marcus. Here is the text rewritten in paragraph style. Marcus said it was my call, and in the end I agreed to meet Paige. Not at our house, but at a cafe in the Pearl District, public, neutral, and with a built-in time limit. Paige arrived 15 minutes late, wearing a blazer and ankle, looking as though she had spent hours practicing how to appear casual. She hugged me for a little too long and told me I looked amazing 3 separate times within the first 10 minutes. Then, the questions started. She wanted to know how big our house was, whether the kids attended private school, what neighborhood we lived in, whether Marcus was still running the company or had stepped back, how many employees we had, and whether we had raised more money recently. By the time our lattes were half finished, she had asked 32 questions. I counted them. Not one of those questions was an apology. Halfway through the conversation, I noticed something in the reflection of the cafe window. Paige's phone was angled toward the parking lot. She was taking pictures of my car, a white Tesla Model Y Marcus had bought me for my birthday. She was not catching up with her sister. She was scouting, cataloging, and gathering information. I let her finish her latte and answered her questions politely but vaguely, the way you answer harmless small talk from a stranger. When we hugged goodbye, she held on too long again. Later, as I replayed the meeting in my mind, one fact stood out. She had ordered a latte and asked 32 questions. The only question she never asked was the only one that mattered. After leaving the cafe, I drove straight home and opened the binder. In red pen, I recorded item 28, Paige reconnaissance visit. 32 questions documented. Vehicle photographed. No apology offered. No acknowledgment of past estrangement. Then I called Grace, the family attorney, for the second time. They are coming, I told her. My mother. Probably within weeks of the IPO. She will bring demands. Grace asked what kind of demands, and I explained the group chat screenshots, Paige's instructions to layer it, and make financial requests look like family investments. After listening, Grace asked if I had documentation. I have a binder, I replied. How thorough? 28 items, dated, sourced, 9 years. There was a long pause before she answered. Iris, you do not need me for this. You need me for the legal structure, the trusts, and the estate separation, and all of that is already done. What you are describing is not a legal confrontation. It is a personal one. For that, you only need to decide what you are willing to say. She was right. This was never really about lawyers. It was about whether I would allow a woman who had ignored me for 9 years to rewrite history simply because the numbers had changed. That night, I pulled out the letter I had drafted months earlier, the one listing every item in the binder. I read it carefully and then placed it back in the drawer. I did not need the letter. I had the binder itself. 28 items spanning 9 years, every returned card, every ignored voicemail, every screenshot, every piece of evidence proving that my family had erased me, not because I had done something wrong, but because I loved someone they refused to accept. The binder could speak for itself. Compliance Corp went public on a Wednesday in October. Marcus and I stood on the floor of NASDAQ in New York, him in a charcoal suit and me in a navy blazer, and watched the stock open at $18 a share. By noon, it had climbed to 20. By the closing bell, it reached 22, giving the company a market capitalization of $440 million. Marcus and I still owned 10%. On paper, our net worth was $44 million. The number felt absurd. It looked like a spreadsheet error, the kind of figure that makes you double-check formulas because there are too many zeros. But the formulas were correct. Verifying numbers was literally my job. The media attention followed quickly. TechCrunch ran a feature. Forbes requested a comment. Bloomberg included Marcus in a sidebar article. A local Portland television station aired a short segment titled Local Couples Fintech Startup Hits NASDAQ. They showed our company photograph, 2 founders standing side by side as equals. That night, Marcus and I celebrated with room service sushi in a hotel room overlooking Times Square. Liam and Sophie were back in Portland with Cora, who had flown in for the week. Marcus fell asleep on the couch before 10 o'clock, still wearing his suit jacket. I stayed awake, not because of the IPO, because I knew what would come next. When I checked my phone, I found 5 missed calls from Millfield, Ohio. 3 were from an unfamiliar number. 1 was from Kenneth. 1 was from Diane. I did not return any of them. Instead, I placed the phone face down on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. 9 years. $44 million. And suddenly Iris Archer was worth knowing again. The next morning, Kenneth's voicemail arrived while I was brushing my teeth. His voice sounded older and thinner than I remembered. The cadence was unchanged, slow, careful, measured, but there was a crack in it that had never been. Baby girl, I saw you on the news. You and Marcus on the stock exchange floor. I didn't know what to say, so I'm calling. I'm proud of you. I always have been. Your mother wants to talk. She has things she wants to discuss. Please call her back when you can. I love you, Iris. I listened to the message 3 times. Baby girl. He had not called me that since I was 14 years old. And I'm 4 words I had spent a decade wanting to hear. But when I listened again, I noticed the timing. He had called after the IPO. Not after the wedding, not after the twins were born, not after the birthday cards, the ultrasound photos, or the birth announcements. After the IPO. He had always been proud of me on paper. What he had never been was brave enough to call when there was nothing to gain. My mother may have created the silence, but my father enforced it. He could have picked up the phone at any point during those 9 years. Instead, he chose the year with 44 million reasons to reconnect. I saved the voicemail, but I did not add it to the binder. It was too sad for the binder. Instead, I sat on the hotel bathroom floor and let myself feel everything for 4 minutes. Then, I stood up, packed my suitcase, and prepared for the flight home. 2 days after we returned from New York, Diane finally texted me. The message was long, polished, and carefully constructed. There were no typos, no abbreviations, and no signs of spontaneity. This was a draft that had been written, edited, and rehearsed. Iris, I know we have lost time. I think about you and the children every day. Life is short, and I have learned that some things matter more than the differences that divide us. I would like to talk about the future, about the children, about what it means to be a family. There are things that families should share. I believe we can find a way forward if you are willing. I read the message twice and counted the words. 63 carefully selected words. Not one of them was sorry. Not one of them was I was wrong. Not one of them acknowledged that she had disowned me for marrying a man whose skin color differed from hers. Not one of them mentioned the returned birthday cards, the ignored grandchildren, or the 9 years of deliberate silence. Instead, she called it the differences that divide us, as though those differences had been mutual. Estrangement was not a philosophical disagreement. It was a woman telling her daughter, "He is not one of us," and then returning 7 years of birthday cards unopened. I did not reply. Instead, I screenshotted the text, printed it, opened the binder, and added a new entry. Item 29. First text from Diane in 9 years. 63 words. 0 apology. Red pen. Dated, I closed the binder, slid it back into the bottom drawer, and sat at my desk, staring at the framed photo beside my monitor. It was a picture of Marcus, the twins, and me at Cannon Beach. All 4 of us were squinting into the sunlight. Liam sat on Marcus's shoulders, and Sophie held my hand. That photograph was my answer. Everything I needed to know was already sitting there inside that frame. Tess called on a Friday. Paige is telling everyone she visited you in Portland, she said. She's saying you live in a mansion. Her words. Then she added that Paige was telling people Marcus had struck gold, that I drove a Tesla, and that the kids attended private school. I leaned against the kitchen counter and sighed. Half of that was wrong. It was not a mansion, and the twins went to public school. Tess interrupted. Iris, that's not the point. Your mom is planning a trip. Paige told Linda at the salon that Diane is coming to Portland next week. She's packing a suitcase. I closed my eyes. I know. How? Because Paige counted every room in that cafe and photographed my car. There was silence on the line. Then Tess asked, "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to open the door." She sounded genuinely surprised. "You're going to let her in?" "I'm going to let her talk," I said. "And then I'm going to show her what I've been keeping in the bottom drawer of my desk for 9 years. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen, with the island where Sophie did homework, where Liam built Lego towers, and where Marcus made pancakes every Sunday morning. Cora's photograph was still attached to the refrigerator beside the twins' field trip picture. Grammy Cora. The only grandmother Liam and Sophie had ever known. Diane was coming. I had known it since the group chat screenshots, since the Series B funding, since the LinkedIn profile views, the church gossip, and Paige's 32 carefully calculated questions in the CAF. The numbers had changed, and Diane Archer was coming to collect. But I was not the same 18-year-old girl who had left Millfield on a scholarship carrying a card that said, "Come home soon." I was a CFO. I was a mother. I was a woman with a binder. And I was ready. The irony was impossible to miss. In Millfield, news traveled through the Baptist church the way water traveled through limestone slowly, everywhere, and impossible to stop. When I married Marcus, the Whisper Network had completed its work in less than 48 hours. Diane Archer's daughter had married someone who was not like us. The women on the prayer chain whispered. The men at the diner shook their heads. Diane had used that social pressure like a weapon, partly because she could not bear becoming the subject of those whispers herself. Now the whispers had changed direction. Tess told me what was being said. Linda at the salon told Tess. The church organist told Linda. Iris Archer's husband was on NASDAQ. Iris Archer was a CFO. Iris Archer was worth $44 million. And Diane Archer, the woman who coordinated the prayer chain and hosted Easter brunch every year, had disowned that daughter nearly a decade ago. People were no longer whispering behind Diane's back. They were asking questions directly to her face. You must be so proud. When did you last visit the grandkids? Are you going to Portland for the holidays? And Diane had to smile through every one of those questions because admitting the truth would destroy the carefully maintained image she had spent years constructing. The same town that once accepted her decision to cut me off was now asking why she had done it. She could not admit she was estranged from her daughter without acknowledging that she was the one who drew the line. And she could not pretend everything was fine without eventually being asked. Then, where was Iris at Christmas? The pressure had reversed. Diane Archer, who had spent years wielding social pressure like a scalpel, was now the one being cut by it. She arrived on a Tuesday morning at exactly 10:14. I know because I was standing at the kitchen window drying a coffee mug when I saw the taxi pull up. She stepped out slowly wearing a beige cardigan, black slacks, and the same pearl earrings she had worn to church every Sunday since I was a child. A small carry-on suitcase rested beside her. The corners were worn from use. She stood on the sidewalk for nearly 30 seconds before finally walking toward the house. I watched her study everything: the porch swing, the garden beds Marcus had planted in the spring, the craftsman details around the windows. She looked at the property the way a real estate appraiser studies a house. Evaluating, the doorbell rang. I opened the door, We stood 3 feet apart. She looked older. More gray threaded through her hair, new lines framed her mouth, but her eyes were still the same shade of green as mine, and they were already wet. Iris, Mom, a silence stretched between us. Then she spoke. I came to talk about the children's future. Not, I came because I missed you. Not, I came because I was wrong. Not even, I came because I love you. I came to talk about the children's future. The children she had never met. The children whose photographs she had returned unopened. The children Paige claimed did not have real grandparents. I glanced at the suitcase, then at the folded piece of paper she held in her hand. Come in. I did not take her into the living room. I led her into the kitchen. The kitchen had a table. It had sunlight. It had the refrigerator covered with photographs of Cora and the twins, artwork from school projects, and the world map where Sophie marked every country she wanted to visit someday. The kitchen was where truth lived in our house, and truth was what we were about to discuss. Diane sat down. I poured 2 glasses of water. No coffee. Coffee was for people who were staying. Her eyes drifted toward the refrigerator and settled on a photograph of Cora sitting on the beach with Liam and Sophie curled against her. All 3 of them were laughing. Diane stared at that photograph for several seconds. Something crossed her face. I could not tell whether it was guilt or jealousy. Then she unfolded the paper. Her handwriting filled the page in neat blue ink. 5 bullet points. Each one precise. Each one obviously calculated. She began reading them aloud. Retirement fund for your father and me, $500,000. I said nothing. College fund for Paige's son Thomas, $200,000. Nothing. Medical expenses. Your father's knee surgery, $45,000. Nothing. Mortgage payoff for the family home, $180,000. Nothing. Monthly support, $3,000. She folded the paper carefully and placed it on the table between us. Then she looked up. This is what families do, Iris. Your father worked his whole life. He sacrificed for you, for both of you. It is time to give back. I stared at the list. $925,000, itemized, calculated, presented like an invoice. Not once during the entire conversation had she used the word sorry. Not once had she acknowledged that she was sitting in a home she had never visited, asking for money connected to grandchildren she had never held. Her children don't have real grandparents. That is what she chose. Paige's words echoed in my mind. I picked up the paper, read each line one more time, folded it carefully, and set it back on the table. Then I stood. I walked to my office. The bottom drawer was exactly where I had left it, beneath tax folders and behind old insurance documents. I reached inside and pulled out the binder. Navy blue. 3-ring. Heavy with the weight of 9 years of documentation. Here is the text rewritten in smooth paragraph style. I carried the binder back to the kitchen and set it on the table beside the folded list of demands. 2 documents sat there side by side. Hers was 1 page with 5 bullet points totaling $925,000. Mine contained 29 items spanning 9 years and 0 apologies received. Diane looked at the binder and asked, "What is that?" "You brought a list, Mom," I said as I sat down and placed my hands flat on the table. "I brought one too." She stared at the binder, at the red pen labels visible through the clear cover, and at the thickness of nearly 3 inches of tabs, documents, printed screenshots, and returned birthday cards in their original envelopes. "I don't understand." "You will." I opened the binder to tab 1, year 1, and began reading. I did not raise my voice, I did not cry, I did not perform. I read the way I read quarterly reports to a board of directors, factual, organized, and item by item. 9 years of documented, dated, every returned card, every ignored voicemail, every screenshot, and every piece of proof that Diane Archer had systematically erased her firstborn daughter from the family. Not because I had done something wrong, but because I loved someone she refused to accept. The binder was not revenge. It was not a weapon. It was a record. Records do not negotiate. They do not forgive or condemn. They simply tell the truth. And I had 9 years of truth to share. I pulled out the first item, a birthday card in a white envelope with a red return to sender stamp stretched across the front. It was still sealed. I placed it on the table. Item 1. Birthday card. Mailed September 12, 2017, returned September 23. Diane's eyes widened. I pulled out a second envelope with the same stamp. Item 2. Wedding photo. Mailed June 14, 2017, returned June 25. Then a third. Item 3. Christmas card. Mailed December 8, 2017, returned December 21. One by one, I laid them out carefully, the way evidence is arranged during an audit. No commentary. No emotion. Just documents arranged in chronological order. Diane's mouth opened, then closed. She stared at the growing row of envelopes spread across the table. White rectangles marked with red stamps. Each one a door I had tried to open and she had slammed shut. These are the birthday cards I sent you every year for 9 years. Every single one came back. Iris, I am not finished. I turned to tab 2. Year 2. 3 more items. A voicemail transcript, my words printed from a transcription app and stapled to a note with a date and time. An unanswered call log. A screenshot of Diane's Facebook post captioned, "My whole world." No Iris, no Marcus, no grandchildren. Item 4. Voicemail to you. January 7, 2018, duration 47 seconds, no callback. Diane pressed her fingers to her lips, her eyes filled with tears. Item 5. Text from Dad. February 12, 2018. 4 words. Your mother needs time. I placed the printout on the table. It has been 9 years, Mom. How much more time did you need? The tears came exactly when I expected them. Diane covered her face with both hands and made a sound I had heard 1,000 times while growing up, the controlled, theatrical cry she used whenever she wanted sympathy without surrendering dignity. It was the same cry she used when Dad forgot an anniversary and the same cry she used when the church did not choose her casserole for the potluck finals. I was hurt, Iris. You chose him over us. You left. I did not leave. You told me not to come back. That's not fair. I was upset. People say things when they're upset. I flipped forward to tab 4, year 4, and pulled out a printout. Item 16. Text from Paige to a mutual friend. Forwarded to me. March 9, 2021. I read it aloud slowly. Her children don't have real grandparents. That is what she chose. Diane flinched. Paige didn't mean this is Paige's exact text. Word for word. I turned to the final section containing the screenshots. 7 pages. Item 26. Family group chat screenshots provided by a mutual friend who was accidentally added. October 4th, 2025. I read Paige's message first. Make a list. Be specific about what we need. She is a numbers person. She will respond to numbers. Then I read Diane's. She has more money than this entire town. She can afford to help her family. Diane's face changed. The theatrical tears vanished. Something harder appeared beneath them. Something familiar. The same expression she wore when Paige broke the good china and blamed it on the dog. Anger, not guilt. Anger, you had no right to read that. I looked directly at her. You had no right to return my children's photos. The kitchen fell silent. Then I reached for one specific item. Tab 5. Year 7. The envelope looked slightly different from the others. Same white paper, same reds, but the flap was creased and a thin strip of clear tape resealed it. I held it up. Item 23. Birthday card. Year 7. Inside this card was a photo of Liam and Sophie at their school fall festival. On the back I wrote, They ask about you sometimes. I tell them you live far away. I placed the envelope on the table. This card was opened. Someone looked at their photo, looked at their faces, then sealed it back up and sent it back. Diane's jaw tightened. Who opened it, Mom? Nothing. Dad opened it. He wanted to keep it. And you made him send it back. Her hands flattened against the tabletop. Her eyes stayed fixed on the envelope. Then she whispered something so quietly I almost missed it. I was afraid. I waited. If I let him keep it, if I let any of it in, I would have had to admit I was wrong. That I lost 9 years for nothing. That I pushed away my grandchildren because I was too proud to. She stopped and swallowed. For 1 second, maybe 2, I saw something genuine. Not performance. Not manipulation. Fear. The kind of fear that hides beneath anger for so long that it forgets how to emerge any other way. Then it disappeared. Her chin lifted. Her posture stiffened. But you left us, Iris. You made your choice. The moment of honesty evaporated like steam from a coffee cup, gone before I could hold on to it. I placed Diane's list of demands on the left side of the table and the binder on the right. 2 documents, side by side, your list. $925,000. 5 bullet points. No apology. I tapped the binder. My list. 29 items. 9 years of silence. 9 years of returned birthday cards, ignored grandchildren, and a daughter you erased because she married the wrong man. Diane's nostrils flared. I did not erase you. You told the church I abandoned you. You let Paige tell people my children did not have real grandparents. You tracked my husband's company for months and arrived at my door carrying an itemized invoice. I closed the binder. The metal rings clicked shut. You did not come here because you missed me, Mom. You came here because the numbers changed. Diane stood abruptly. Her chair scraped against the tile. After everything we did for you growing up, the food, the clothes, the school supplies, this is how you repay us? I met her gaze. You raised me. That is not a debt. I've converted it into smooth paragraph style while keeping all the dialogue and story details intact. That is what parents do, I said when Diane insisted they had given me everything. You gave me a card that said, "Come home soon." Then you told me not to come back. She had no answer for that. I could see her searching through her familiar arsenal of guilt trips and emotional leverage, looking for something that would work and finding nothing. I continued, You said he was not one of us. But for 9 years, his mother was the only grandmother my children had. The words hung in the kitchen like smoke. She heard them. I watched them land. For the first time, she had nothing left to say. Just then, the garage door rumbled. Marcus walked into the kitchen through the laundry room with his keys in one hand and his laptop bag slung over his shoulder. He immediately saw Diane, the binder on the table, and me. Without saying a word, he set his bag on the counter, walked over, placed his hand gently on my shoulder, and sat beside me. That was all he did. No confrontation, no dramatic entrance, no speech, just a husband sitting beside his wife because she needed him there. Diane stared at Marcus, the man she had refused to accept 9 years earlier. He wore a simple flannel shirt, running shoes, and a watch that cost less than her pearl earrings. There was nothing flashy about him, nothing that suggested a $44 million net worth. He was simply a good man, a father, and a husband. Sitting beside me with his hand on my shoulder, he said everything that needed to be said without opening his mouth. Diane's eyes drifted to his hand resting on my shoulder and then to the quiet space between us. There was no tension there, no performance, no need for words. In that moment, she understood something important. I did not need the Archer family anymore. I had already built. I spoke calmly, the way I would present final figures on a balance sheet. "Mom, I am not giving you money." She opened her mouth to object, but I continued before she could speak. "Not because I can't afford it. Because the moment I hand you a check, you'll convince yourself that you were right to stay away until it became profitable to come back. You'll tell yourself, and you'll tell Paige, that this is what family does. That the silence was just a misunderstanding. That the last 9 years were only a rough patch." I picked up her list and held it toward her. They were not a rough patch. They were a choice. Your choice. Every returned card. Every ignored voicemail. Every photograph of your grandchildren that you looked at and sent back. She did not take the paper. It hung between us. If you truly want to know your grandchildren, not as a line item in a financial plan, but as people, that starts with an apology. Not to me. To them. And it doesn't start today. It starts when you're ready to mean it. After a long moment, Diane finally took the list. Then, she picked up her suitcase and walked toward the front door. She stopped, turned around, opened her mouth as though she wanted to say something, then closed it again. Without another word, she walked out. The door clicked shut behind her. Not a slam, a click. The sound of someone leaving after realizing she had lost something she could never buy back. 2 weeks passed. Marcus and I hardly talked about, not because we were avoiding the subject, but because there wasn't much left to discuss. She had arrived with a list. I had answered with a binder. She had left without apologizing. The equation was settled. The twins never knew she had visited. They were at school when she arrived and when she left. I preferred it that way. One day they would learn about Diane Archer, but only when they were old enough to understand that some people only see your value when circumstances change. Then Kenneth called. It was a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing a vendor contract at work. "Iris," he said quietly, "your mother told me what happened." I waited. I should have opened that door for you 9 years ago. I should have driven to Portland the day the twins were born. I should have done a lot of things. His voice cracked. "I'm sorry. Not because of the money. I don't want your money. I want to know my grandchildren, and I want to know if you'll let me try." I sat silently for a long moment before answering. "I believe you, Dad, but believing you and trusting you are two different things." "We start slowly." "How?" he asked. "Phone calls every 2 weeks. No visits yet. No money. Just conversations." He agreed immediately. "That's more than I deserve." "It's exactly what you deserve," I replied. "Not more. Not less." After we hung up, I went back to work. Paige texted once, just a single sentence. "You could have just helped." I never replied. Some messages answer themselves. Diane never called, never texted. The silence returned, but this time it belonged to her. I had already said everything I needed to say. The next move was hers. The binder remained in the bottom drawer of my desk. 29 items. 9 years. I never added a 30th entry, and I hoped I never would. Those 9 years taught me something simple but important. Family is not defined by a shared last name. Family is not the people who suddenly appear when your net worth changes. Family is the people who show up when your world is small, when your garage is cold, and when your children need a grandmother. Family is the person who flies across the country every 6 weeks, crochets blankets, teaches your son how to make grilled cheese sandwiches, and never asks for anything in return. That is family. And in the end, it was never about money. It was always about showing up. That is my story. 9 years. 29 items. 1 navy blue binder. If this story reminded you that your worth has never been measured by numbers, share it with someone who needs that reminder today. Leave a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next story.